Am I though? That's the question. Actually, I'm seeing stuff. Yeah, I think we're back. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah, so OBS crashed and then it just said stream ended on YouTube. So I was like, what's going on? I'll share this link on Discord. One sec. Oh, it's Claire doing it. Claire Prime is typing. Alright, I'll do it. Okay. Are we back in business? Huzzah. There's always something, isn't there? Right, so the chillers are working. So the next thing to check. I'm just going to reset up these casts. Right, tanks next. Okay, and then the pumps. Yeah, he didn't miss much, just me scratching my head whilst things didn't work. Where did the reactor go? Oh, forgot to move that one across to the new system. was the thing spamming there? Pumps ready and tanks ready. So that's better named that. It's almost like its message is bouncing back and forth. Of course. Right, and then we've got multiple versions of the reactor, haven't we? So we need that. Thank you, Firstus. Very much appreciated. And I think you're right, it's probably been more often than that. Wasn't expecting that to work then. It just kind of worked and caught me by surprise. Right, let's just check these pumps a minute. So that should be initialize reactor. There's way too many of them. Gonna skip a couple of these a second. So right, so battery, so what we do first. Then the chillers, then the tanks, then the pumps, then a reactor. I think you're right, AJ. Thanks, Delta. I'll have a look in a minute. Right, so tanks are going to display a message. That won't. And leave that one there. So how much spam do we get? So for each tank we get 3 reactor inits. Why are there so many tanks? Because we only have 3 tanks on the ship. Yeah, it's only 3 tanks, so that should only come up 3 times. So each tank fires 3. Which means that the chiller that must be getting multiples as well. Hang on, let's turn these ones off a minute. Right, so we've got 3 chillers sending their message, or receiving it rather. Actually, no, we don't. We've got 3 for each battery. Yeah, so we're definitely sending it once. So we're broadcasting init chillers. Right. And then on the chillers, we're getting multiple hits. I might need to stick a do once on that. Let's see whether or not we're broadcasting more than once. So there should be 3 of each. That was nice and smooth though, like there was no lag at all throughout any of that loading screen. Like all the lag was held behind the fade to black, which is nice. Hang on, let's just stop that a minute. So, broadcasting init tanks 3 times, chillers 3 times. Right, so one, 2, 3, 4. Because there are 4 batteries. Wait, I know why this is happening. It's because there are more than one of them, of course. So yeah, of course. So if each of the 4 battery arrays is broadcasting the message, then of course you're broadcasting it 4 times, which means that each of the 3 chillers is getting 4 messages, which means you now have, what, 16 messages? So of course it's exponentially piling up because you have multiples of each device. If we only had one of each device, it would work perfectly, but we don't, we have multiples. So why didn't I think of that sooner? So I suppose the easiest way is maybe select just one of them to be the startup device. So only one of the battery arrays is actually doing its thing. Because ultimately, if one's working, then they all should be. I know that's a big assumption to make, but from a startup perspective, that might be the way to go. Because the alternative to this is that we just wait an arbitrary length of time and then fire the next step in the chain. But doing that means that we're making it susceptible to lag. Yeah, exactly, Illusion. I think that's ultimately the solution. So if we have so for each of the devices, if we have no, not a function. Didn't want that. No, I didn't want that either. Startup broadcaster. And we make that instance editable. Then we can decide whether or not we do that. So we'd need to do this on each of those devices to make sure that only they are the ones broadcasting. Which means we'd need to do that obviously in the world. So let's take the last one in the chain. You are our startup broadcaster. There's only one reactor, so we don't need to worry about that. And then for each of these, we need to do the same. Startup broadcaster. Oh, I clicked the tank. Yeah, true. I tend to drink tea, it keeps me going. So that one, that one. Oh, that doesn't help. False by default. Same for the pumps because we have multiples. Okay, this time we should only have one of each thing. Yeah, it's more like it. Oh, wonder what happened then. I walked into the shuttle. Where even am I? And why am I surrounded by planets? Oh, they're potatoes. That's confused then. I was like, what system has this many planets? But no, it's our potato field. Need to move that out of the way. Right, if we move our spawn location back a bit, let's not put it that side actually, that's where the teleporter of confusion lives. If we spawn there, then grab that. Move him out the way. So on our player controller, when we spawn the character, we look to see which ship we're on. So if we're on ship 2, then this is where we want to be. Oh, I need a reference to that location again. So if we save there. So we should see the bridge fade in smoothly. So galaxy gen happens where it's not lagging us, and then we fade in and we have no lag on joining. Let's try that again a sec. So non-lagging loading screen. Fade to black. Now all the laggy stuff happens. And then we fade in without any lag. Silky smooth. Right, so we've got controls for those things there. We've got that one there. We've got the electric stuff here, and I'm assuming that still works. Yeah, that still works. Good. Okay. I don't know where we are. We're in a star system somewhere. I'm not sure which star system. This is whatever the save game was, is what we've loaded. Is this actually hooked up to anything? I mean, are we actually in Sol? Oh yes, we are. Okay. Alright, so we've moved about 0.198 U away from Earth. Would explain why there's nothing out there. Okay. So the sensors are working then, that's a good start. So what won't be working yet is things like the autopilot. because the flyable ship code that we're using for the Caravella doesn't have this stuff implemented yet. So that's something that we're going to have to do. We probably, we don't have any of this hooked up yet, which is why it's not working. So that needs hooking up. Yeah, so if we continue to power these off of our fake power supply there, just so we can get it working. And then once it's actually working and the ship is flyable, then we can start porting it over to the actual electrical supplies and get our holo display on as well. In fact, why don't we do just that? Of course, so this one, another good example of building something specifically for one ship in the game, i.e. the Magellan, and putting things like the holo emitters like inside the holo display actor, when really they should be part of the Magellan, not our generic class for the holo display. So we're going to make child classes that have those things in, but have our master class be ship agnostic. Well, any sufficiently advanced technology can be perceived as magic. Does that count? Yeah, I could go for a magic burger. Sounds quite nice. empty ball. Oh. Okay, so that's another thing. The bounds of the holo display are based on world units away from the world origin. So if we have like all the stars, then it won't render them outside of the bounds that we set. But the world origin for the Caravella is down here in the middle of the ship, not in the middle of the bridge. So on the Magellan, the world origin is in the middle of the bridge. So of course we've measured everything from there. So in order to get the holo display actually showing things, we need to make sure that that is based on the location of the center of the display. So we'd need to feed in that value, again making this ship agnostic, so that we can put holo displays wherever we want them and still have the visual effects confined to the sphere of the display, without relying on world origin to work that out. Those are like my keywords for this year: generic and modular. Right, so we've got our voltage coming from our test coil. I'm just wondering, because we're getting that reference to the current ship, and I had it hard set to the Magellan just for test purposes, because if we get ship state, our macro at the moment is skipping the check. So because we're using this fairly often around the game, I'm having it drive this regardless of what blueprint you're in to get the same data. I'm a little bit nervous about the world context object reference and how that's going to behave, but we'll see. Don't know whether hooking that up is going to fix it or not. I wonder if the Magellan's going to load that smoothly now. Obviously there's a lot less stuff for this ship, but that was silky smooth. Yeah, that's still not going to do anything. Okay. I suppose it is because on this one we are processing the helm inputs and obviously converting those to actual values on the ship. So we're taking those, and like here we're this one rather. So we're taking our control surface and adding our controls accordingly. Which we're not doing on the Caravella yet, I think. Let's just get rid of all that stuff that we were doing, and then we can focus on one problem at a time. persistent level. So I think we were happy with this as is. That one seems to be working. Yeah, we don't need doing anything on tick. So that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much that. So that can go away now. Right, so this is our reference blueprint, and what I didn't want to do is just duplicate this and tweak it for the Caravella. I wanted to make sure that we start from scratch with the Caravella, because we're implementing all the sublight stuff, and I don't want to be kind of jerry-rigging it. I want to do it properly. So we just need to make sure that we look at how we're doing FTL and things like the autopilot, and we need to adapt that for the fact that the Caravella is moving with physics. So the difference between the two ships is when the Caravella moves, we're actually providing thrust. So we're actually thrusting the thrusters in order to move the ship. Whereas with the Magellan, we're just moving the ship. It's not actually receiving thrust from anywhere. Sorry, Delta, I missed what that was in reference to. Oh, I think my GPU just freaked out again. Nope, we're all good. I actually think it's having the index plugged in. I find that when the index is plugged in, every couple of hours or so, all my screens go black for a few seconds, then come back on again. I think it's an HDMI cable twitchiness. Ah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think it's exactly that, Kaji. It's the HDMI lead for the index is causing it to keeps just doing something on the HDMI channel. Might also be why OBS crashed. Yeah, so something you can do, Delta, is you can get the actor location in the world. So we know where in the world the actor is, and then we can drive that location into the material. So when we're checking the origin point for our spherical culling, we can use that value. We just need to offset it by the center of the screen, or we make the actor centered, which I think it is actually. Yeah, I think the center of the actor is in fact the center of the screen, so that makes it easy. So we'll just get the world location of the middle, put that into the materials that we render for the hollow effects, and it will cull based on that location rather than the world origin. Should be simple enough. Yeah, I think it is CSI because it came up with some like ENV underscore something something. It was obviously an NVIDIA driver message. Where is our test ship? That one. Right, if we skip loading a minute, that will bring us to Earth. Hang on, let's check that it's there a minute, because yeah, it is. There we go. Because I need the potatoes. It's interesting, actually. Where'd Earth go? Yeah, having having the potatoes appear when we change the location of the ship is a nice proof that the spawning system's working properly. Although we do seem to be missing one large planet. That can be a problem for another day, I think. All good CSI. To be perfectly honest, I can never be bothered to look. I just go, oh, it's crashed, and then get on with my life. I'm usually too busy to go squirreling around looking for why. I just keep ignoring the problem until it goes away. Or until it happens with such frequency that I can't ignore it anymore. Where's the event graph? Right then, so yes, that's all our loading stuff. That's our thruster management stuff. That's something we don't need. We'll handle that differently in a minute. Was it there? Oh, okay. I just couldn't see it. Yeah, Claire's not wrong. Yeah, I tend to ignore mechanical issues until the car stops, and then I deal with it. Okay, so all of that stuff can get out of the way. This was me trying to sort out the center of mass. So it's really annoying that you can't set the specific center of mass for an object. You can only set an offset. So that isn't the center of mass, that's the offset from where it is by the automatic calculation. Because when you use non-cuboid geometry that might have more geometry at one end than the other, it will move the center of mass back based on the volume of those various cubes. So that's not the geometric center of mass that we want when we're calculating our thrusters, because we want all of our thrusters to thrust in relation to the dead center of the ship. But because the shape of the ship is such that we've got a ring around it normally, then if you look at the amount of geometry here versus here, it moves the center of mass backwards all on its own. And if we use auto-convex hulls, then they're not equally balanced each side, so then it moves the center of mass towards one side or the other. So I want a way of forcing Unreal to set the center of mass at the geometric center of the ship and nail it there regardless of the physics geometry. Which I was hoping I could do with this, but apparently not. So I've been trying to do it with math instead. So getting the offset from where it calculates the center of mass to be to where I want it to be, and then force that offset. But even doing it like this, and you'd think that would be the exact difference, it still offsets it. Yeah, the problem with using a bounding box is that becomes the collision geometry for the object, unless I'm mistaken. because we want the collision geometry to be fairly tight to the hull, because obviously, you know, when other ships are flying around or you're flying in a shuttle, you want to be bouncing off of the hull as accurately as possible. We don't want just a cube around it, because then you're not bouncing into it with enough accuracy. Unless you can have a separate volume for the physics, of course, in which case I would need to look up how to do that. But yeah, that was baking my noodle for a while, that was. But yeah, we don't need that, so... Okay, what's that doing? Oh, I see. I need to combine those together into one message rather than running two separate functions. Right. So that's our base setup. So the other thing we need then is we need to grab these helm input gameplay messages and then deal with those accordingly. Yeah, that's what this is doing. So we're getting the location of the object, which is the geometric center. So the world origin just happens to be the middle of the ship, because that's how I set it. And we get the calculated center of mass. So if you minus one from the other on each axis, then the vector you get is the offset. So if you then set the center of mass offset with that calculated value, that should set the center of mass exactly back to the middle of the ship, because you're calculating the offset and then moving it. But it's still off by like 0.001. It never seems to be able to do it perfectly accurately, which is a shame, because that would have been the perfect solution. But it's ever so slightly off, so that when you're thrusting, the ship is kind of slightly turning when you're thrusting sideways. Alright, when you're thrusting forwards, the nose is slightly tipping up all the time. And it's just, you know, it makes flying it frustrating. So we'll we'll find a way of doing that in a better way. Okay, yeah, I was doing it there, so what we don't have is the FTL1. So it might actually be worth taking this out of here and moving it to the event graph. Yeah, that's what I have been doing basically. I've been changing the thrust of the forward engines to be ever so slightly less than the back engines, so that it kind of stays straight, but that becomes like a tuning problem rather than being able to set it exactly. But yeah, we'll find a solution to keep it balanced that doesn't require like hours of fiddling to get it right. The nice thing though is being able to offset the center of mass means that if we have, say, a cargo ship, we can offset the center of mass based on the cargo loadout. So the more cargo you have, the ship will like handle differently, which will be nice because it's kind of like a realistic response to having like shifting mass. Okay, so let's grab our helm a minute. So we want to know what control mapping we are sending through for various buttons. And I think moving forward, I'm going to stop doing it numerically with an integer, and I'll start doing it with strings instead, because strings are more kind of readily readable. Like on here, our control surface is just a numerical value, and it's like I've got no idea what 10 would be. I've completely forgotten. So if that just said like FTL engage, then I'd know just at a glance what I'm talking about. Right, so pitch, roll, your translation. Okay, so button 10 is minimum. That's minimum throttle. Numbers would be fine if I didn't have a memory like a goldfish. So 10, 11, 12, and 13, and 14. No, so 11, 12, 13, and 14. Those are our throttle controls. Okay, so where are we? So 11. Okay, yeah, so what we're doing here is we're borrowing those inputs for the main engines, which we're going to have to flag this. So if we are at FTL, they control the FTL power. If we're not at FTL, they control just the sublight engines. In fact, let me just check that they still do work, because I make sure I haven't broken something in the process of all the other stuff I've been fiddling with. So he can get out the chair. Oh, the chair's like not happy, but we do have control of the ship. The skybox is static. Which is interesting. Yeah, so that stuff's all working fine. Do the thrusters work? Yes, they do. I forgot I made it go that quick. work out what else is spinning around me. Don't think that was the potatoes. So I need to convert these over to the new global macro rather than relying on those. And the same for the skybox. Yeah, that'll be why that wasn't moving. Same with that one as well. So we pitch up. There we go. Right. Oh. So space is moving. That's good. The star system is not. But stars are. So it's just the local system that's not moving. Oh, I know why. Because of that. So, same thing. We no longer need the old way of doing it. Simply do that instead. And then we've got control over that from our global macro. Good night, CSI. Have a good one. Look, Earth is back. Okay, so now we should have absolute control. Hurrah! I did first us. Yeah, so we now have got full control over our ship again, which is good. And we hit a potato. Right, so yes. So we need to hide the proxy. I'll leave the proxy for now, actually, because we need to see the thrusters firing. So we need to, we need to remove the mapping temporarily from the thrusters, the main thrusters. Let me just get rid of all this a minute. Right. So I'll keep this as our reference. So what was it? So 11, 12, 13 and 14. 12 and 13 need to go away a minute. And then we need to use these for controlling our throttle there. Did I set up a handy macro for that? Not sure that I did, to be honest. Basically I didn't. So what we'll do then is on here we'll take our ship throttle, which I'm assuming is the one we are going to be broadcasting via that one. Yeah, so we'll grab those. So that says at warp, even though I'm plugging autopilot on into it. It's because I need to rename that struct entry. But I'll do that when I'm restarting the engine next. Otherwise I'll have to not save anything, because it will break the reference to the struct if I rename it. Right, so that sets up that. And then we need to So I'll collapse all this into its own node in a sec, but so we know 11 is, and we will take our ship throttle there, and then we will minus 10, no 5, I think I was doing 5% in intervals. Ah, that's what it was doing earlier. Yeah, could have restarted it after all. Sigh. Hopefully OBS survives that one. I'll make sure I unplug the index for the next stream. use there. It's because it was midnight. That's what it was. It was like the midnight crash. Right, let's just do that again real quick. Ship throttle, subtract 5. Set it to that. So that was 11. And 12 would be -1. Would be +1. And then that's going to be +5. Okay, and then we'll collapse them. Them to that. So we've got minus, 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 plus, and plus, plus. I think 10 was 0 throttle, wasn't it? Lasagna sounds good. I haven't had a lasagna in a long time. Right, so 10 is minimum. So let's just add that while we're at it. We may as well add a max 2. So that's literally just setting that to 100. Other way around. That's setting it to 100. That's setting it to 0. There we go. Right, so if 10 is minimum, then assuming 15 is max. Yeah. So -5, -1, +1, +5. So let's see whether this works. One last thing I need to do. Oh, I'm doing it from 0 to 1. Hang on, let's fix that a minute. So that's 0.05, 0.01, 0.01, 0.05. yeah, we're updating the UI independently of having received those messages from the ship. So let's leave it like that for now, because I'm noticing the values are flipping. Because I'm getting those values on the ship state update. At least I was. But I think I think there's a conflict going on there. That will just make sure that they do actually go up and down. We can put up with the back. Hang on, let's move that chair a minute. It does not like being embedded in the floor. In fact, they can all stand with being moved up a little bit. There we go. That's better. Yeah, there we go. So these values are now working, so minimum, maximum, and those values. Now you'll notice as I'm clicking, sometimes the values kind of flicker, because what's happening is the values are being updated by the ship, because the ship's saying this is what my throttle is set to, or at the same time the UI is also trying to update itself, which is where the conflict is coming from. So this is, again, is going back to that whole don't let the UI do anything, make it only respond to data. Don't let it like necessarily set data where it doesn't need to, because then you end up with those kind of issues. There we go. So it's still doing it? Yeah, a little bit. Oh, that's better actually. Yeah, it's not conflicting now. So we haven't got engage hooked up to anything, but powers. Oh, hang on a minute. Did that? Oh, clamping would be good, wouldn't it? Right, I'll just do one last thing before we go. Yeah, so what is the... So 16 is what? Actually, no, I can't do that yet, because we don't actually have the capability of going to warp yet. So I shall leave it there. On the next Caravella stream, we will actually implement the code required to make it to warp, to handle the autopilot and get it flight ready. The autopilot is going to be a particular challenge, because we're going to have to now have the autopilot actually fly the ship. So on the Magellan, it is simply just rotating the ship to face the target in the world. So it knows what direction the target's in, and it's just rotating the ship to face it. In this instance, now that we've got physics-driven thrusters, we need the NPC to fire the thrusters in order to position the ship. So there's going to be these instances where it will continuously fire the thruster up to the point where it's facing the target. Then it will turn the thruster off. But of course we're already moving at that point, which means it's just going to swing past it, which means it's then going to fire the opposite thrusters, and you end up with a situation where it's just bouncing back and forth. So we're going to have to do some logic there to reduce the thruster strength, depending on how off target you are, or depending on how quickly your nose is turning towards the target. So flight controller, basically. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, so where are we today? It is Sunday, so the next stream is the Magellan stream on Wednesday. And we'll do some more crew task stuff. We made some great headway on Friday with that, so we'll continue trying to get some of the science and probe stuff done for the Magellan on Wednesday. Okay, have a good one everyone, have a great week ahead, and I shall see you on the next stream. Bye for now.